Thank you, Sean. Thanks to everyone that's here. We got a full house here in Phoenix tonight. Before I forget, because I might, thanks, Bob, for checking on us this week up in Edmonton. Everybody say hello to Bob in Edmonton. And Walker, Ranger, up in Edmonton as well. Thanks for checking on us. Patrick in Minnesota, but where? Moorhead, Minnesota. And Stephen in Philadelphia. And if any of the rest of you out there are listening to us tonight, if you reach out to us during the week, we can call. Oh, yeah, Chris in Lubbock, Texas. There you go. All right, so I don't think we forgot anybody. All right, perfect. We open every session with a prayer, and Wayne's agreed to do that.
Let's pray. Thank you. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your presence. We thank you for this host of friends and family that springs up about us, Lord. We ask that you empower us to go out into the world and testify of your power, of your redemption, and of your restoration. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen, amen. Thank you, Wayne. So if you didn't know by his prayer tonight, we're going to take a look at step 12. And if you've never caught us before, I know that happens if you're sitting in a hall somewhere and someone tells you got to go check out this meeting or whatever, or if you're in treatment. A lot of treatment centers around the country pick us up. So what we do, we've been doing for lots of years, we take a look at the suggested instruction for a step or so a week directly out of this book. And we use this book in 12-step recovery. Why? Yeah, the process described by the authors of this book has been proven to work for addicts of the hopeless variety, addicts to alcohol and other substances. And in fact, they've learned over time that this manner of living helps to solve all kinds of behavioral disorders in addition to, alcohol, other drugs. They're just a symptom of an underlying malady. So entering into this manner of living, gaining access to this power, doing a few simple things, any number of behavioral disorders are overcome. So it doesn't matter what it is that's been troubling you. If you can feel this message tonight, you ought to grab somebody and have them start walking you through the process described, huh? And tonight we're going to look at step 12, so you'll get to see the all-inclusive nature. 12 and 1 are all kind of one big ball of discipline and practice, right? Or rather, practice and discipline. Once I concede, I concede inward to my innermost self. That's the first step. And then I know that the great reality is in the last analysis, it's only there where my power may be found, right? I know that from 2. So based on that, I'm re-upping on my decision in 3, and I'm finding out what's standing in the way of my usefulness, right? I'm going back through what's going on in my thought life that's got me blocked from going where I want to go. Make sense? And so you'll see that all laid out in step 12 in a chapter called Working with Others. So it's kind of interesting. Working with others is the foundation. This was never a manner of living, a program designed to be done by yourself. And although people try to do that, it just doesn't work. It needs an impartation and it needs a demonstration. They're learning now in a lot of therapy and in a lot of work settings and all kinds of behavioral settings that people are unable to hear oftentimes, and they're only able to follow through and become good employees, become productive citizens if they see the behavior modeled. And if you don't believe that, they know this from humanity because apprenticeship is thousands of years old. Right? You can teach them all you need to teach them, but if you don't show them what you need to show them, you're going to have a bunch of messed up furniture. Okay. Yeah, I was almost going to go a whole different way. Okay, so we're working with others. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. So let's unpack it a little bit. They suggest other activities will fail, but offering yourself in service to another will not fail.
Right.
And how many other activities have you might have heard about in your recovery journey?
Go to meetings, read the book. That's it.
Go to meetings, read the book, go to 90 and 90.
Put the plug in the jug.
Put the plug in the jug, whatever the hell that means. You weren't much of a drinker if you kept the plug after it came out. That's all I got to do. I never had use of a plug once it came out of a jug. Anyway, not to poke fun of things that happen along the way, but the reality is if you're serious about this, your condition is serious, then the one thing that'll save you is reaching out your hand to another. All right. Then it says, this is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message. Now listen, that what I just said is the selfish reason, so it is not the 12th suggestion. What follows is the 12th suggestion, because that would be minus self.
Right.
Does that make sense? Carry this message to other alcoholics. So what message?
Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed a path.
Yes? Practical experience shows that nothing so much ensures immunity from drinking as intensive work with others. Do you know the minute you humble yourself to ask someone to show you what they know, you're automatically in step 12?
Yep, because you're helping them.
There's a lot of things they may not tell you somewhere. All right. So it says you can help when no one else can.
Right.
You can secure their confidence when others fail. That's why I went through that whole thing about what science is learning about this right now, and learning why the pure model is so critical. I can have the best communication skills in the world, but if you don't see me doing what you hear me saying, it's going to get missed by you.
Yeah.
All right. So remember, they're very ill. Life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you'll not want to miss it. Sean and I just had a little discussion before here. He and I have been sitting in rooms like this for a while. Others here have too, but Aaron too. But we're looking around. There's 30 people sitting around here. They're family. Not something you say. That's who they are. They come into our home. They have a meal with us if they will. We with them. We break bread and we talk about serving together. Right? That's so this is that promise unfolding. This is that fellowship growing up about us. This is that host of friends. All right. So frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. That's why if you look around, there's some people here wide-eyed. They've never seen this done before, because Brian brought us a bunch of fairly new people, or at least new to this tonight. Welcome, folks. We're really glad you're here. So perhaps you're not acquainted with any drinkers who want to recover. Now, that was at a time where alcoholism was not a diagnosis. No one was treating it. Do you think that's true in Phoenix, Arizona today?
Yeah. In the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay, so Sean pokes a little fun at some of the silly messages we might hear in the fellowship. But listen, it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing in a room of recovery or why they're there. It only matters what you're doing and why you're there.
Yep.
And so when we show you how to read this book, we're showing you how to read this book so it doesn't trouble you how others talk or act.
Yep.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can easily find some by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, or hospitals. They'll be only too glad to assist you. Don't start out as an evangelist or reformer. So what do they mean?
Hallelujah. Demon wrong.
He did kind of an evangelical reformer, didn't he? Basically, no one wants to be lectured to until an accommodation is made. And usually they need to make the discovery I may be more like them than they care to admit before they're going to hear anything I have to say. That's why we built the reentry center here in Phoenix based on the pure model. Because we knew they were never going to take advantage of the therapist until somebody told them this place is all right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, okay, unfortunately, a lot of prejudice exists. You'll be handicapped if you arouse it. So if I really care about lifting people up, I want to make sure I don't get my zeal in the way of their ability to receive a message.
Right.
Ministers and doctors are competent, and you can learn much from them if you wish. But it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics. They're saying in a very small few words what I was trying to impart to you. I don't think most people know what it is to drink like me. But I know the people in this room probably know what it's like to drink like me. And I know most people don't, because I hear things like, well, you got this. Just keep fighting. They want me to fight with my delusions. I will lose that fight. Anyone else had great need or desire to stop and just didn't stop? So fighting ain't the answer. Last week, what did we learn the promise was? And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, for by this time sanity is returned. Right? This is powerful. We got to let people know, man, we're not talking in theories. I'm feeling, who's feeling what I'm feeling, what we're putting out? Yeah, that's the power we call God around here. All right. So cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim. That's why I keep walking back my criticisms. Sorry. I'm growing. When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. How does one find out all they can about another person? And listen to understand, not to respond. Put your therapist hat on for just a minute. You're not there to give answers. You're there to hear them say their answers and then call to their attention they just gave their answer to their problem. All right, so if he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. You might spoil a later opportunity. You're not the persuader. Who's the persuader? Alcohol, methamphetamine, cocaine, fentanyl, heroin, whatever, right? Whatever other behavioral disorder you may have, eating disorders of any type, self-harm, rage. Where's my ragers? Do I got any ragers? Yeah.
About 2 weeks ago.
Just, wow, that long, huh? You need a chip? They should be patient, realizing they're dealing with a sick person. If there is any indication he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife, and get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his background, the seriousness of his condition, and his religious leanings. You need this information to put yourself in his place to see how you would like him to approach you if the tables were turned. So eyesight without insight, spiritual blindness. We don't spend enough time doing this. I need to know what your prejudices are. How bad is your condition? How likely are you to respond to what I have to say? And if I don't know that you're ultra-religious and you're going to automatically be prejudiced about this message, then I won't approach you right. And if I don't know that you're anti-religious and you're going to be prejudiced about that message, then I won't be able to approach you right. Guess what that means, sponsors? You better be able to talk Bible and Big Book.
We agnostics is the way it is.
Yeah, if you can't talk both books, you are talking a foreign language, right? To over half of the fellowship. Because it's based on that, right? It's based on a universal language. All right, so I'm not going to read that next paragraph because I want to jump. I want to go to at the bottom of that page. If he does not want to see you, never force yourself on him. So sometimes people will ask us to see someone for them. I don't know if any of you have had that happen, but it happens to you. Well, I'm willing to see them for them if they will call me and say, I want you to come.
Yes.
But I'm not willing to be their nasty surprise. Neither should the family hysterically plead with him to do anything, nor should they tell him much about you. Don't let someone else give your testimony. No one will be able to put the signature of the Spirit on your testimony like you can. They should wait for the end of his next drinking bout. You might place this book where you can see it in the interval. Here, no specific rule can be given. Now, I was a victim of this book being placed around the house in various places, and I was a bit delusional. And I emphasize a bit. And so I thought, my goodness, I didn't have any idea that Dad's drinking had gotten so out of control. Because I didn't think the book had nothing to do with me. So if you're and I had no reason to think that way. I was in hospitals more often than I was changing my underwear. That's about how often I changed it, as every new hospital was. Right? So anyway, so the family, people laughing, but there are people who know it's true. The family must decide these things, but urge them not to be over anxious, for that might spoil matters. The family may want to adopt our manner of living too, because control is an illusion, and the persistence of the illusion is astonishing, and many of us chase it into the gates of insanity or death. Have you ever loved someone in active addiction and watched them tearing your life down and theirs down and could do nothing? You surely know what powerlessness means then, not a theory, right? All right. So usually the family should not try to tell your story. When possible, avoid meeting a man through his family. So we kind of beat that up. So I'm going to go down to middle of the page, see your man alone if possible. So most of us are going to meet him in our fellowships. Yes? Yep. So can be difficult to see someone alone in a fellowship meeting, can it? So how do we do it, some of you? Yep. Meeting before the meeting, after the meeting. Look for the ones that, if somebody's really been on one, they're not hard to spot. Don't be afraid of that. Embrace that.
Get in the car.
Sean kidnaps him. Been saying it for years. I know it's true. At first, engage in general conversation. So no matter how rough they look or how they smell, we're not going to talk about them. We're just going to say, hey, man, haven't seen you here before. How you doing? Do you work around here? Even if it's obvious they're not working currently. The worst thing that can happen to you when you're really tore up from the floor up is have everyone assume they know why you're there.
Exactly.
After a while, turn the talk to some phase of drinking. So we're going to chat a minute, and then we're going to talk about some phase of drinking.
Yep.
Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself. I'm at an AA meeting after all, or a recovery meeting of some sort. So maybe we strike up a chat about what it looked like for me. Because one of the things you're going to notice around our fellowships, if you're fairly new, is we clean up pretty fast around here from where we come from. And so you may look at somebody and think, oh, they don't know what I know. And they may know a lot more than you know, because we clean up. All right, so we got to sort of let a little out without trying to scare people, right? Most of our people in our circles, they have what we call a past. Okay, not to diminish anyone's past, but some of us took it a little further. So tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself. Do you know how to do that?
Yeah.
Lay enough out there to get them talking, and then be quiet and see what they reveal.
Yeah.
They're teaching you how to fish, folks. Okay, so if he wishes to talk, let him do so. You'll thus get a better idea how you ought to proceed. If he's not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit, but say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. Why not?
Because you're going to be talking about spiritual shit and you'll scare them away.
Sean's worked with a lot of people. He says when he talks about the spiritual stuff too early, it scares them and they don't talk to him anymore.
Wait for them to ask. They got to pull on the road.
Yeah.
Push on the road.
Yep.
Wrong tool.
So it says, if he's in a serious mood, dwell on the troubles liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. So I have to be paying attention not only to what they say, but their demeanor. Right. I got to be looking for their masks. I got to see the people that are telling you tragic stories with a smile on their face. I got to see people that are angry seemingly for no reason. And I've got to speak to that presence in them to level the playing field. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's not about hearing how to respond. It's about who am I sitting with? Does that make sense? Why do you want to improve conscious contact? Because it's the awareness of being aware of the shared spirit between you. There's another book that says, whenever two or more of you are gathered in my name, there I am in your midst. You have access to how they're feeling. Truly, regardless of their mask. That's why you want to be awake when you make these encounters. Does that make sense? How many of you guys that have heard a lot of fifth steps have found yourself crying while they're still smiling? Because we carry each other's burdens when necessary. Yes? And then call their attention to their inappropriate response to tragedy and see if we can help them process it. All right, so if his mood is light, tell him humorous stories of your escapades. Any of you got humorous stories? How many of you have called them escapades? That sounds a little, yeah. Get him to tell some of his. When he sees you know all about the drinking game, commence to describe yourself as an alcoholic. Tell him how baffled you were and how you finally learned that you were sick. So how baffled were you? And how did you finally learn you were sick? So Sean got suicidal. Anybody else relate to that?
Yeah.
How many of you were doing suicide on the installment plan? How many of you put yourself in dangerous suicide by cop? I got any of those? Sure, they're in every room. So all of us know a little something about it, right? Give them an account of the struggles you made to stop. You probably made some struggles, yeah? And I've had guys that say, nope, never made a struggle to stop. This is the first time I've been serious. You go, really? Well, then you're talking to me way too early. You need to go out there and really get twisted off.
Yeah.
If you never made a struggle, it's never going to work. Wait, I was in detox when I was 13. Really? Some people would call adolescent treatment a struggle. Right? But that's the delusion of mind. I'm not making fun of the guy. He honestly didn't know that was a struggle. He was trying to play to me that, oh, you want to work with me because I'm serious, because he's been told you got to be serious. Dude, I don't care if you're serious or not. You can't lie to me without my permission. I'll know you're not serious within 10 minutes. And the tone will change. Not nasty, just, dude, I wasn't serious lots of time. I was serious about getting away from you and getting back to the dope man. Okay. Show him the mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree. So what is that for you? That's what the steps help you arm yourself with. If you don't know about that twist that leads you back to active addiction in your own story, you're not going to be an effective witness, right? We suggest you do this as we've done it on the chapter on alcoholism. So they talk to us about Jim the car guy and Fred the businessman, right? We talk to us about a jaywalker, that if you substitute your active drinking, your alcoholism, your drug addiction for jaywalking and substitute the consequences of your addiction with getting hit by a car and then can't wait after you get out of the hospital to go run in front of another car. Any of you relate to any of that? Okay. Well, it says if he's alcoholic, he'll understand you at once. So those of you who related, I got good news and bad news. If you understand what I'm saying, that we got to read more. Okay. So it says he will match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. So if you're satisfied that he's a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. So they defined real alcoholic earlier in the book. For those of you who don't know, come back next week. We'll be in step 1 again. But page 20, 21, thereabouts, he's a real Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, seldom mildly intoxicated, always more or less insanely drunk. Any of you guys just have one speed, all in? Where's my meth addicts? How many days? So, and Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, you all get that, right? You just become a completely different individual, right? Seldom mildly intoxicated. I got any drinkers? How many of you surprised them at intake with your blood alcohol levels?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because we'll operate in a 3 right? We may even drive to the hospital in a 4. It's been known to occur. I was unable to park, however, not efficiently. Okay, so show him from your own experience how the queer mental condition surrounding that first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower. So they're telling you what an alcoholic insanity looks like in a practical application, right there in that sentence. Did you catch it? There's this weird blank spot in my mind that defends my source of spirit against all comers.
Right.
And it will get in the way of logic. It'll get in the way of love of a loved one. It'll get in the way of consequence that's absolutely certain. Joe, you're going to jail if this happens again. Okay, I won't happen again. Yeah, anyone? They're talking about that happens before you take the drink. Alcoholic insanity is that strange blank spot before. Everything that happens after that is just the crazy shit that happens to people like me when I put sustenance in my body. Okay, so don't at this stage refer to this book unless he has seen it and wishes to discuss it. And be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic. Why not?
Nobody actually told anything about themselves.
Well, they just don't believe it. How many of you, when you were out running and gunning, but you weren't ready to do anything about it, you said, well, of course I drink like this. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. How do you expect me to behave? And have you ever said anything like that? So it means nothing because I'm not internalizing the gravity of it. And that means if I care more about them than they do, then I need to be careful how I approach them so I can pierce the delusion. And so I'm going to talk to them about my condition and how that manifested and see if they relate. My only expertise is lived experience. Even though I've been trained in other things, the one that I'm effective at is lived experience. All right, so let him draw his own conclusion. If he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him possibly he can. If he's not too alcoholic. Now I'm going to tell you a little secret. Nobody wants to be told they're not addict enough.
Right.
And test the theory. Tell them, oh, really? You still got this? Why don't you just step over to the nearest trap house? Get you, $10, $20 worth, take a little puff and throw it down, walk away. See how that works out for you. Maybe just fill the syringe halfway and slam that sucker. Then throw the rest away. Go ahead and just take a good pull on that bottle and then hand it to the other guy on the street. We're not trying to throw them under the bus. We're trying to get them to see how silly the whole idea that I can still control it is. Anyway, but insist that if he's severely afflicted, there may be little chance he can recover by himself. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Do you know that alcoholism is an illness? I think one of the reasons a lot of AAs aren't effective, a lot of addicts aren't effective, is they don't believe it's an illness themselves. And if you have never seen somebody who was straight and now they're not and don't see that as insanity, then you haven't seen what I've seen. I mean, they're not even the same person. It's pure demon. I've seen it way too many times. Yeah. So talk about the condition of body and mind which accompany it. Keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it'll serve some good purpose, but you may talk to them about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. Now that sounds like a promise, and it is, but I want you to internalize it as a responsibility, which means it's a warning. You may talk to them about the seriousness of alcoholism, but it's a candid and deep and dark conversation. And you need to be not hyperbolic, just matter of fact, based on your own experience. Does it make sense? Because none of us are going to get scared straight, or we'd have done it before we made it to rooms like this. All right, so You will soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, the traits of an alcoholic. So the traits of an alcoholic is when I drink it, do I drink more than I intend? When I use, do I end up doing more than I intend? Do I behave erratically in order to get more? Am I doing those things? And when I get clean time, do I return to it rather than, if that was my only problem, why do I keep returning to this thing, right? That's it. That's two things I got to find out. And if that's you, then I'm going to tell you what I learned. Yeah? Okay. And then if his own doctor is willing to tell him that he is alcoholic, so much the better. Some people believe it. Sean believed it. The doctors told him he was an alcoholic. He was in an alcoholic detox. He believed it, and he's been sober since. I had lots of doctors telling me, Joe, you're going to die if you don't quit. I'm like, yeah, I know. Tell me something I don't know. Tell me when. I'm not trying to be glib because I already knew I was dying. I was living death. But I just want to know how long I got to hang on. All right, so even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he's become very curious to know how you got well. How many of you have met that guy and you're just tore up, and then you met somebody and they started talking about a completely different existence than you're living, and you're like, man, I just need them to tell me what they found out. It happened to me. I'd been in so many detoxes, and this old boy came in and laid down a story, and I didn't know nothing. I couldn't clear my head. I couldn't quit shaking, nothing. I was so sick, in and out of delusions, but I knew if I could get that guy to tell me what he was talking about, I'd never be the same, and I have not ever been the same. All right, so let him ask you that question if he will. Tell him exactly what happened to you. So you got to get armed with the facts about yourself, because there's a lot of people that will encourage you. Well, you're doing it. I'm not doing anything. I'm powerless. What I did was I ruined my life and the lives of everyone that cared about me to such a degree that no one cared about me hardly anymore. And then I landed in one more detox, and an old boy who had done the same thing to his family came in there, and he spoke like this, and I knew I had to talk to him, and I talked to him, and then one day after being released from that detox, he had me through my steps, out making my amends and getting me ready to go take my first people through the steps, and I was having to do that through a homeless shelter, just to give you an idea of the depths I took it. And I have never been the same, but I was sick and poor for years after that. But I've always had purpose, and I've always had passion, and I've always cared as much about you getting a shot at a decent recovery as I had. And my life's lived that way. That's what happened to me. All right, so stress the spiritual feature freely. This guy, when signs of life started happening to me, he said, what's going on in you right there, Joe, that's the power we call God, not a concept, not a theory. It is power flowing in, power, peace, happiness, sense of direction flowing into you. He said, I'm imparting that into you because the power who animates me imparts it to me for you. He made it simple for me to understand that I wasn't in a Bible study. I was in a healing, first century healing. So it says, if the man be agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic. He does not have to agree with your conception of God. You do not have to believe as I believe. What would help is if you would believe that I believe. I don't know how many people I met in the homeless shelter said, I can't possibly believe in whatever it is you're talking about, but I absolutely believe, Joe, that you believe. And I'll walk out of here based on that. I said, that's fine. I'll loan it to you for a minute. You're going to want your own soon enough, right? Don't trust me with your stash. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. Don't let him get twisted. It isn't, I've heard this over the years, and people, it's a group of drunks. No, it's not. Precise instructions. It's found deep down inside you, if you're a man, woman, or child, or some variation of the three, right? And you'll recognize it as power, peace, happiness, and a sense of direction. Yes? And everyone has it as much as they have a feeling for a friend. And no, we're not saying to my religious friends, that this power is a feeling. What we are saying is your awareness of the feeling is the power. That's life. To know what you're emoting is life. I've been blocking consciousness of life to block my emotional response all my life until I encountered this power. And now I use this power to restore those people I'm sent to. Does that make sense? All right, so the main thing is he'd be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he lived by spiritual principles. So everything we're going to show you is some practices in 4 through 9, and then disciplines in 4 through 9 for the rest of your life through prayer and meditation. And then use it as your GPS to find people who you can help of his power. Does that make sense? People wander into your presence seemingly randomly. It's never random. When dealing with such a person, you had better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. So we've got inventory. We've got confession. Right? Step 4, step 5, prayer and meditation is what I'm learning in 6 and 7, and prioritization about what I'm willing to do right now, getting honest with myself about what I'm willing to do. Right? I mean, how many of you have had trouble getting honest with yourself about what you wanted to do, therefore you had trouble implementing what you wanted to do? We do it with food, we do it with spending, we do it with all kinds of things. So if you're going to get your finances in a row, you do a budget, right? And you don't inflate the budget or lie to the budget. This is how much I got coming in, this is what I have to have, this is what's left on the end, right? Okay. So there's no use in arousing any prejudice he may have against certain theological terms and conceptions about which he may already be confused. Don't raise such issues no matter what your own convictions are. Your prospect may belong to a religious denomination. His religious education and training may be far superior to yours. In that case, he's going to wonder how you can add anything to what he already knows. But he will be curious to learn why his own convictions have not worked and why yours seem to work so well. We don't talk about that enough in the fellowship. Remember, half the original fellowship were religious and they couldn't hear Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And then there's another half that we cater to. Oh, don't say God. Well, somebody better say God, because we're talking about power, and everyone here's a power seeker. They wouldn't be here. And we call that power God because of its sensory nature. We got to agree at a point at which we encounter. Yes? Yeah. The same thing as the smell of a rose. Everyone smelled a rose, but if I don't say a rose, we're going to be all over the board. Everyone's tasted Coca-Cola, but if I tell you to describe the taste of Coca-Cola, you can't without saying Coca-Cola. Because it's sensory, so it's elusive. So we got power experiences, we got redemptions going on. We're going to have to name it for the betterment of all. Does that make sense? All right. And I have had the religious people who didn't like the recovery people, and they were ordained, and they were serving, and they were spun on something. And they came up to me and said, man, I just said, it's really disturbing. I'm ordained. I've got all this training. And you're teaching with authority. Now, those of you who are biblical, you know when you're teaching with authority, that means they know the Holy Spirit's speaking through me, and they know they're getting convicted by it. And I just looked him right in the eye, and I said, well, then if you know that I'm teaching with authority, you know it's not me that's teaching. Y'all better listen. Right? All right, I'm going to jump. 94. Outline the program of action explaining how you made a self-appraisal. Why are the steps in order? Because I'm going to show people a proven process through which you'll gain access to power if you'll follow through. Does it make sense? And it would just be better if we didn't make up our own. They wrote a book. How many of you made up your own? Sure. I went to Joe's Anonymous for a long time. Lonely place. Okay. So, have you straightened out how you straightened out your past? Guys, people ask me, do I need to do my amends? It's how you get fit spiritually. It's how you subordinate the ego to your spirit and start to walk in a little bit of humility. It's how you take away the mystery of your crazy behavior, because all of us have had crazy behavior around family that we professed to care about, in fact, did care about, but could manifest no outward action that showed we cared. So if I don't go own that I did that, you didn't deserve that, then I'm never going to grow sufficiently to be able to really carry the weight of the Spirit I need for the really sick ones. See? All right. And then how you straightened out your past and why you're now endeavoring to be helpful to him. Why, after all these many years, or some of us that have been doing this for many years, still doing this? It's our never-ending debt. Step number 3 calls for me to turn my thoughts and my breath over to a power. Not my actions, that's shallow. My breath, my very life. Life. If you don't believe breath is life, try not breathing. You ever had the wind knocked out of you? You want it back, huh? Yeah. Yeah. It's important for him to realize that your attempt to pass this on to him plays a vital role in your own recovery. I've been blessed with a spiritual awakening no matter what the encounter was, and it wasn't always even an AA type encounter. You have all kinds of encounters, you have no idea what they're going to be. Actually, he may be helping you more than you're helping him. Make it plain that he's under no obligation to you, that you hope only that he will try to help other alcoholics when he escapes his own difficulties. The reason we hope you'll try and help others is that is the big amends. You want to get free of guilt, shame, and remorse, put your musty past to work saving a brother or sister. That puts purpose in all the trash, right? So suggest how important it is that he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. We don't want to hear that in the beginning, but the reality is my needs are met. The only way I get more power than I need is when I offer it to you, but it comes with benefits when I do. Make it clear that he's not under pressure, that he needn't see you again if he doesn't want to. Why are they telling us that? Yeah, and we all get attachments, like we get favorites, and we learn how human, we almost want to take credit for their recovery. I see it all the time. And I was powerless, but now look what I can do for you. So we need to be careful, because I can't do anything for you, but the one who does it for me will do it for you, or he wouldn't have sent me to you. All right, so you should not be offended if he wants to call it off, for he's helped you more than you help him. See how they're reminding me? Chill, Joe. Just be a good instrument, right? You notice how no surgeon has ever had to give credit to his scalpel. We're instruments, man. If your talk has been sane, quiet, and full of human understanding, you've perhaps made a friend. How many of you guys have had encounters with people and then ran into them years later and they said, I don't know if you know this, but you ran into me such and such a time way back when, and you said this thing to me, and it set in motion a whole chain of circumstances, and it's the only reason I'm standing here today is because we hear that kind of stuff. Makes Wayne cry. Look at him. Maybe you've disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. This is all to the good. The more hopeless he feels, the better. He'll be more likely to follow your suggestions. Yep. It's okay if they feel bad. Of course they do. What you're feeling may not be the weight of shame at that point, but the weight of hope. Because desperation comes with a surrender that's heavy. Yep. Right? Your candidate may give reasons why he need not follow all the program. How many of you tried to take someone through the steps and there were some things that they must have had a note from somebody or something? I won't be armed with the facts about myself in order to be a proper witness. I can't unpack until I am a proper witness. So there's no point in cutting steps out, because everyone will know. The same way that my fitness program obviously is lacking something. You guys can't see, but I'm round rather than angular, but they can't, Sean. So clearly I have skipped a step or two. Yes? All right. So he may rebel at the thought of a drastic house cleaning, which requires discussion with other people. So why do they go to that one? A lot of us have, maybe found someone they're hoping will like them for the first time, and now disclosing some untasteful things about themselves is really scary. Yeah. What they suggest to us is do not contradict such views. Tell them you once felt as he does, but you doubt you had made much progress had you not taken action. I had things I didn't want to say to the guy that took me through the steps, and luckily he was in tune with the Spirit, and as soon as I got done, he looked at me and he goes, well, you've done good work, Joe. Now what are you not telling me? And I'm like, how do you know? And then I spilled it out, and it wasn't a big deal to him. He'd heard 1,000 times over that kind of stuff. But when that happened, the atmospherics in the room changed. And then the first time I took anyone through, I learned you can't lie to the one taking you through if they're spiritually fit, because they're going to get a whole flow of the Spirit. When those chains break on them and they get set free, you're going to feel it. And if they're still bound, I'm going to feel that. Okay, so then it says, on your first visit, tell them about the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. So the difference between our fellowship meetings, you'll meet some fine people. You might find people that are in the manner of living. You may find a lot that are not and don't even know that it is a manner of living. And that's okay. But don't assume their base of knowledge is the same as yours, because if you're putting in the work, you're simply going to know some of the things they're talking about are nonsense. And that's not anything to exploit. It's talk crisply. Remember, just because they're in the rooms and claiming to be sober doesn't mean they're not suffering. How many of you have been sober and suffering in the rooms of recovery? It'd be nice if somebody that knew that came up and said, hey, man, let's hook you up with some power, brother. You ain't living. Right? All right. So if he shows interest, lend him a copy of this book. The reason I really want to lend you a copy of this book is to prove to you can't read it on your own anyway.
You wanted to sell my books.
Well, I would give them the book just to show them they can't read it, because they'll tell me they're going to read it. No one can read this book on their own because it describes an experience they haven't had.
Right.
And you have to call to their attention what's happening between you.
Right.
And we've known this since the book was first published. They found a guy who claimed to have read the book and recovered on his own. So they sent him money and a bus ticket to come from wherever the hell he was back to New York to tell his story. And he was going to be a story in the original book. And when he got there, he was too drunk to get off said bus. So there's no chapter on how to recover on your own in this book. Nor will there ever be one. Okay, well, I can't say that. They will rewrite it eventually, I can tell. But anyway, I want to jump over to, I'm going to go to the middle of 95. If he's not interested in your solution, if he expects you to act only as a banker for his financial difficulties or a nurse for his sprees, you may have to drop him until he changes his mind. This he may do after he gets hurt some more. So don't get more earnest than they are about their recovery. That's what they're saying. They'll just add suffering to you. Yeah.
Top of 95.
Top of 95? Yeah. Unless your friend wants to talk further about himself, do not wear out your welcome. Give him a chance to think it over. If you do stay, let him steer the conversation in any direction he likes. Sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to let him do so. This is sometimes a mistake. If he has trouble later, he's likely to say you rushed him. You will be most successful with alcoholics if you do not exhibit any passion or crusade for reform. And it says never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop. Simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection and show him how they work with you. So in order to show him how, I'm going to have to invite him to walk with me. Right? If you're interested but you're frightened, then walk with me. I'll show you what it looks like, practical application. Does that make sense? No big deal. All right, so I want to jump over from there to page 96. And they're going to caution you, you guys that are new and you're just starting to help people, you're going to find that a lot of people will tell you they're interested until there's something to do, and then they're not interested. And that's just the way it is. That's for your benefit. Remember, you're doing your 12th step, not theirs. Right? So you're not there to convince. You're just there to get fit. Right? The new guys I work with, they'll call me every once in a while. I think that guy wasted my time. I go, he wasted your time. Why were you there? He was there offering you more than you were offering him. Why did you not get it? Don't tell me what he did. Tell me what you did. Why were you so distracted you didn't get your awakening? Brings it home, don't it? Okay. Hey, listen, we've all sat with people a long time that have wasted a lot of our time, but why? Because I was waiting to respond and they never took a fucking breath. That's why. Apparently more of the people than me have done that. So the point is that we're supposed to control, direct the conversation if it's getting off track, right?
Right.
All right. So do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. Search out another alcoholic and try again. Don't give up. Don't say, oh, I only get them to step 3 and they ghost. Look, that's the most common story, and it is either you misread. Like I've had people say, man, I had such a powerful 2 and a powerful 3. I could feel it. I know the Spirit's in there, and there they all lit again. I go, well, how do you know God's will is for them to get sober right now? May not be. You're sure to find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you offer. So pay attention to how, not what they're trying to say, but what are they doing to show you they want to participate in their own recovery? You won't have to do very much for the kind of guy who really wants it, and it won't matter how much you do for the kind of guy who doesn't really want it. We find it a waste of time to keep chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you. If you leave such a person alone, he may soon become convinced that he cannot recover by himself. To spend too much time on any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and be happy. Right. One of our fellowship failed entirely with his first half dozen prospects. He often says if he'd continued to work on them, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered of their chance. So they're talking about Bill Wilson, and Bill Wilson, of course, wrote the majority of this book and is a change agent, probably one of the most meaningful change agents in the 20th century. And all of us sitting in this room today are among those who may have been cheated out of their recovery if he had insisted on changing. So the consequences of admitting our own limitations is for real, right?
Yeah.
All right. I want to go to page 97 because I'm going to talk about never avoiding responsibilities. They talk about people who need money, need housing, need. I'm not going to get into that. We've all met them. We've all been them. But now they're going to tell us how to learn to discern what they're saying versus what they really need. Does that make sense? So never avoid these responsibilities, but be sure you're doing the right thing if you assume them. So how am I going to do that?
Experience.
Well, I'm learning through prayer and meditation to talk about what's really going on here. Not with them. I'm watching them, but I'm listening to the Spirit. Yes? And it says, helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. Okay, well, that's not by accident that we're talking about the foundation stone, the cornerstone, because he said, whatever you do for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you do unto me. So pay attention. This is deadly serious what we're doing with this, right? So a kindly act once in a while isn't enough. Basically, the rule of thumb is if you're seriously alcoholic like I am, if it's a significant enough event for you to help someone that it has to be on all your social media, you're not doing enough. Just talking real talk. You have to act the Good Samaritan every day if need be.
Yep.
It may mean the loss of many nights' sleep, great interference with your pleasures,
Yep.
interruptions to your business.
Yep.
It may mean sharing your money in your home.
Yep.
counseling frantic wives and relatives, innumerable trips to police courts, sanitariums, hospitals, jails, and asylums. Your telephone may jangle at any time of the day or night. Your wife may sometimes say she's neglected.
Don't have one of those anymore.
Because you neglected her. A drunk may smash the furniture in your home or burn a mattress. You may have to fight with him if he's violent. Sometimes you'll have to call a doctor and administer sedatives under his direction. Another time you may have to send for the police or an ambulance. Occasionally you'll have to meet such conditions. This is how you know that this is your big amends, right? How many of you have been in police courts and sanitariums and hospitals and people you didn't know came and visited you?
Yeah.
And you don't remember, or even after they left, who they were, but they did it, right? In jails, in prisons. All of us have a similar experience with that. How many of you have had to call people in the middle of the night, interrupted their pleasures, or someone else, some agency called them? Anybody? So the big amends is I need to take my role in paying that unending debt because it was done for me. Does that make sense?
Yep.
The guy that took me through the steps said this was my job description. First, he said these are the promises. but he's kind of a jerk. He was. God rest his soul. But he did rightfully tell me that's really your job now, right? So it says we seldom allow an alcoholic to live in our homes for long at a time. It's not good for him, and sometimes it creates serious complications in the family. And though an alcoholic does not respond, there is no reason why you should neglect his family. You should continue to be friendly to them. The family should be offered your way of life. Should they accept and practice spiritual principles, there's a much better chance that the head of the family will recover. And even though he continues to drink, the family will find life more bearable. So we don't often do that. I'm going to run out of time if I don't do this real quick. 98. I promised last week I'd tell you we're growing in understanding and effectiveness. So understanding of what effectiveness at what, here is what they're telling you. 98, it's not the matter of giving that's in question, but when and how to give. I'm going to grow in understanding and effectiveness of when and how to give.
Right.
That makes sense? I'm going to learn to discern through my thoughts and my spirit what the need is that's presenting.
Right.
Yeah? And then it says here, burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he can get well regardless of anyone. The only condition is that he trusts in God and clean house. You cannot burn into a man's consciousness without the Spirit. It comes with a signature. So when we're talking about depth and weight and that type of stuff, they're not talking about shock and awe. They're talking about getting hit with such profundity that even though I may not comprehend it, I desire it. Does that make sense? And I'm not going to go any further because I'm going to run out of time. So thanks for being on. Next week, we're in step 1.
Neuropathy.